Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, the podcast show number 415 with your host, Lauren Gray.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hospitality Marketing, the podcast. I am your host, Lauren Gray, and this is episode number 415. So each week we spend around 20 to 30 minutes sharing the most interesting tools, news, and techniques being used in marketing for the hospitality industry. We also do a quick recap of our weekly live TV show, This Week in Hospitality Marketing, which airs every Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time on the Hospitality Channel TV station. So with that, let's get started.
And now, today's new resource tool.
So our three tools for review this week, yes, three, we're keeping in threes these days. The first is delve.ai, delve.ai. Delve.ai, really cool. Use this. Real strong value of this is it takes your own data. So if you can connect it to your analytics, now GA4, because we're in that world now of GA4 having been fully launched as of July 1st and UA analytics being sunsetted, as in being turned off for the most part. This takes your active data and then takes a lot of external third-party data and coalesces it together into a persona generating system. So it will look at those people that come to your site, if they're bouncers, if they're a single engagement, multiple engagement, multiple purchase. That information then turns into personas. Now, it also does it for social. It does it for your site and on your analytics, and also on social. You can connect to your social platforms, do the same thing, create the same engagements, create the same round view. Keeping in mind that this is about statistical relevance and related source content. So it creates personas based on what it gathers from your data and extrapolates it in comparison to the data that it knows about those same similar behaviors and functions. A lot of math and analytics goes into creating these things. These are meant to be a benchmarking process. It's not meant to be a point of truth. It's not meant to be that these are exactly the people that are coming and using your facilities. It's a guidepost of what personas do for you. And we'll get into that in the technique discussion in a few minutes. But this platform, using your own data, is incredibly powerful to begin to start the process with relevancy to the data that is yours. Looking at real engagement with your website is a huge advantage to the accuracy of the data that is generated from it, albeit that it is implied data that is used beyond just your actual data to create these personas, but it's a reference point that at least has a root to the core, to the tangible. So that is delve.ai. The second tool is personadeck.io, personadeck.io. Personadeck.io, in a fascinating way, is allowing you to create a tool function. What this is you, through what you see, you know your people for what you're looking at to create a persona with. It'll use third-party data based on what you tell it you know about your personas. Now, obviously, our live show had a great deal of conversations about developing personas. We've had personas as a topic repetitively in our history of the live show and on the podcast. So this is not new dialogue for those that are faithfully following our program, and thank you so much for being those people. If you're new to the conversation of personas, however, it is a modality of using a targeting process. You're creating a non-existent person relevant to the aggregated assets of what you know about the types of people that come into your business, primarily in this case, hotels. What is their family composition? Where is their geographic source of reference? What are their usual habits of what they, vehicles they drive, family composition, types of things they bring with us, the quality of the luggages and or coolers and or what do they do in the areas? It's not that you have to be Sherlock Holmes and see what kind of phone they're using or look out in the parking lot and see if they pulled up an Lexus versus a Yugo. For those old enough to remember where those were. This is a chance for you to identify things that you do know, and then a platform that will help you extrapolate more data surrounding them. And personas have a certain development of pattern of aspects of what a good persona creates. Why do you use personas? We'll get that into the technique discussion, but it's a wonderful tool to start not just on basis of your data like you have with Delve AI, but in your own categorization of what you think personas the aspects of personas, and it builds from there. And the third and final tool is a very functional tool based in Notion, really, which is a wonderful platform if you get to be comfortable with Notion. It takes a tremendous amount of sources of things that you have, going back to kind of the Delve concept. If you can tap to it on your aspects of what you know about your social engagements, what you know about your web engagements, what you know about outside influences of what you see with your own eyes or your team sees with your own eyes, and puts it in, and it will create a persona of what you're looking for. And again, in techniques, we'll discuss the usabilities of this, but it allows you also to create your own personas with the additional augmented data that it's connected to. It'll take what you tell it, it'll take what you connect it to, and it'll amplify it with additional data statistically relevant to the types of those persons. And it does some really cool stuff about customer journey stuff and funnel and engagements, as does Delve, does the same thing, as does Persona Deck, do the same things. So those are our three tools. We're going to get right into the technique discussion. Our three tools is delve.ai, personadeck.io, and powerpersonas.com, powerpersonas.com. And those are our three tools of the week.
Now, for this week's hospitality technique.
So our technique discussion this week is data beyond numbers, and that's where we're into the persona conversation. We're just not looking at trends and pace and numbers and engagements and traffics and links and functionalities. We're looking at whom is it that's doing those things. With us being into the new realm of GA4, we're going to have a lot of conversations, a lot of podcasts about functionality, usability, data acquisition, data interpretation, data aggregation, data reporting. All that's coming. In the meanwhile, what we do want to lay as groundwork for our discussions as to the relevancy of that usages of data as it works with what we understand as to marketing principles, marketing understandings. Personas is a functional, usable tool as we roll into budget season coming up, and we have to recalculate what our expectations and our goals are based on KPI goals and what have you. We have to reevaluate who it is that we're servicing. Who is the building built for? Who did we build this hotel for? Why would they be coming to us? What kind of people are those people? Obviously, if you build a hotel between point A and C and you're the point B, who are the people leaving point A, or who are the people leaving point C getting to A? Who are those people? What is their composition? Now, there's three categories of information that we usually relate to identifying what a persona is. We have the behavioral, we have the psychic, and we have the performance. We have the things about their demographics, the source of their origin of geographies, their family compositions, maybe their median family income levels, their habits of travel, things like this. Then you have other intangibles as to the purposes of travel. Is it business? Is it pleasure? Is it for destination? Is it for event? These are all aspects. But there's a lot more to personas than just the what I see related to what walks in my door. It's all of the other things we don't see about them in their development. And that is, what is their brand propensities? What are their interests? What is their behavioral patterns of, do they book quickly? Do they book late? Do they do a lot of research? Do they do little research? What is their trigger points? What is their points of resistance? What are the things that they look for that are positives? What do they find that are negatives? There's a lot of behavioral components to a persona that we just don't know from the engagements of people, because that's more of a visual engagement. You know, what do they look like? Did they bring in kids with them? Did they drive? Did they get dropped off with our shuttle? What have you? Did they attend a conference? Are they showing up for an event? These are all things. The reason why we create personas is to better generically identify the target of our marketing strategy. Take a case in point, if there's an event in your space, in your destination, and it's a festival or it's a transient-based demand to your market. It's a short-windowed opportunity based on calendar interest, and you get a certain type of clientele that come in. Maybe they're cost-sensitive. Maybe they're creatives. Maybe they're business-driven. Maybe there's a huge conference. If it's not necessarily a soft event, maybe it's a business-related event. You want to paint a picture of who those people are and know more about them so that there's better ways for you to create targeting associated with them. What kind of terms would they use in their search? What are the things that they are associated with? If they're related to a medical conference, maybe they're related as doctors. Maybe they're related as assistants to doctors. Maybe they're service facilities that service that industry. Those identifiers are what creates a persona in what you do for marketing. Because once you lay out categorically these types of content, then those are the reference points that you use as you begin to define the content that you use in your messaging, the channels that you use in your communications and distribution of your marketing strategy, the timing as to when you put that out, to the level of what you're looking for. How do you identify industries to make sure your ads are related to them? How do you target audiences related to the topics that are related to that avatar, that persona? And those are the ways that you use your persona-driven marketing strategies from that side. The tools Delve and Persona Deck and Power Personas are just literally that, tools to help you create a better clarification, maybe perhaps give you more insights. When it comes to Delve, you're looking at the fact that you're seeing real data to your websites. So if you go back in time and look at the time that they began to engage with your website prior to the event that's going to be driving them for the persona that you want to identify, you can look at your own traffic data and how it's used in a persona development that Delve would have made for you to add all the other aspects that you may not be familiar with, that they have a brand propensity that shows that they have more money. Like if they love BMWs and they have iPhones, they're probably at a different income level than people that have Androids and drive Toyotas. We're not judging, or we're not certainly implying, but we're saying that there's different categorizations of people. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the price point of what you're charging for your rooms and so forth. I mean, I think those are what you would consider to be captain obvious statements, but a lot of times these persona developments may surprise you in how people might overspend their income level or underspend their income level, but have the propensity to spend more should they want to. These are the discoveries from the persona development you create that you use in your marketing strategies, and that is either affirmational, that by targeting those personas, you resonate with those people that you thought the persona represented, and you improve your conversion value, or you misjudged who you thought were your personas, and because of that, you realize that although you thought they were this group of people, it turns out that they really weren't. They were these people over here, and that lesson gets learned in your future developments. So that's the data beyond the numbers that you get to use. You develop personas to better identify your targeting goals and to justify and validate your targeting strategies, because by the choices that you make, the production warrants the success of what you consider to be your best interpretation of your targeting. So there you have it. Data beyond numbers. Brings us to our news and show review.
Now, this week's hospitality news that you should know.
So, the correct way to gather data. We went and delved in at great lengths as to it's not always just about functional data numbers and the realities of what numbers represent, trends of numbers, statistical paces and so forth and so on. It was the idea that you were really looking at getting into the who, what, where, whys, and whats. Looking at the destination information associated with how people make decision processes. And that's not necessarily a data-driven perspective. For instance, questions that you should ask. Who are my guests? And not by pointing them across the lobby going, that one, but who are they? What is their composition? And it's all different. We know this to be different. We know that people travel for with family. We have things that are like, if it's transient travel, what they're traveling for. That's a purpose-driven aspect of travel. If they're traveling with family, that's who they might be. If they're not traveling with family, if they're traveling for a bit, who are these people that we're getting? And we also know that even though we like to shuffle them all into one pile, there's each person is also multiple. One day I might be traveling for business, next time I might be traveling for pleasure, might be time traveling with family, the third. I'm three different people, but I'm the same person in physicality. So we each have our own separate personas when it comes to those things. So identifying who are your guests for what you're looking to target. If you just try to find one persona for your entire business for the entire year, that is unrealistic and inaccurate at best. You have different personas for different times of year, for different reasons, for different day cycles. Your persona of your traveler over the weekend is by far probably different than your persona of traveler over the weekday. Every other week. So who are my guests is a question. what is getting sold? Why are they here? What are they doing? If they're staying here, is it because of what? And what are they doing? Are they going to the restaurants? Are they going to my restaurants? If I have one, are they going to local restaurants? Are they spending time discovering the area? Or are they here for particular task-driven things? What is their motivation? Are they here for cultural adventures, soft adventure, off the beaten path, culinary adventures, family adventures? There's so many variations to what they're there for. To know what they're getting, what they're buying, what are they picking up? Where am I selling it? Meaning, am I selling it online? Am I selling it at my doorstep? Am I selling it through a third party in the sense of a CVB or TDC or Chamber of Commerce? Please don't tell me you're doing it through OTAs, because that's not a good thing. We have other discussions and other shows about all of that. They're useful, but they should be measured. When is all this happening? What is the reason of the travel? What's the time frame? Is there an event driven? Is it a time of year? Or is it our peak season? Is there something that's driving them to our destination? Why are they doing what they're doing? Motivation of their travel experience. And the other questions, like, how are we getting our offers in front of our potential guests? How are we understanding who our guests are to know what they're most interested in knowing about? And do we have that information? Are we relevant to that information? And are we putting that in front of them? So the idea of just looking at raw data of numbers and traffic and engagements and funnels and functionalities and conversions is all good and valuable. It is not the only questions you should ask, and it's by far not the only thing you should consider when it comes to your marketing strategy. So for that reason, be correct. Our live show is very much about making sure you gather the proper 5 Qs, at least those 5 Qs. There's more questions than that, but that is an easier way of looking at the questions that you should be asking. So there you go. I don't want to keep it. We just finished the live show and we had a very in-depth conversation about it. And I'm like, it's all sitting in my head. And I'm like, oh yes, I want to add this. I want this. And I'm like, nope, we'll keep it to the review of the show. By all means, please look. You can find it on our live TV show of our Love Lucy rerun platform called hospitalitychannel.tv. The show's replays there as well, along with all of our podcasts, these being included, and all of our live shows. You can find it on the TV station Hospitality Channel. You can find it on our app, which is Android and Apple iOS, which is Hospitality Channel as well. The live show is always on the free side of that. You can go to talktravel.tv and sign up and watch it on your TV or on your phone if you want to, or on web, whatever. We have all that available to it. We, of course, simulcast our live show, so you can go to a dozen or so Facebook pages and or YouTube channels and see the live show repeated as well. Of course, for our podcast, you can find us on Google Play, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher. The list goes on, 39 platforms and counting. And of course, you can catch us with Amazon's Alexa, Google Assistant, and Siri, just simply to ask to play the Hospitality Marketing Podcast. And of course, no matter which one you may use, please leave us a rating, hopefully a good one, and a comment. That helps other people discover the content as well. And then if this is your first time hearing us, smash the subscribe button on whatever platform you discovered us on, and you will get our weekly feed of content and perspective of hospitality marketing on both this podcast and on the live show if you want to chase over and watch that as well. Here in the podcast, we tend to get very granular towards the tools and the functional usage of the tools. On the live show, we tend to talk more about the overall value proposition of what those things would do for you in general and concepts. Of course, I mentioned already the hospitalitychannel.tv. You can catch all of our podcasts and live shows there. And I've already told you that we do our live show every Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern U.S. time on the Hospitality Channel TV station. And the show is called This Week in Hospitality Marketing Live. So I hope you catch us there as well. We're in 209 countries with the TV station, 39 countries with our podcast. We hope you find us in one way, form, shape, or another. And for that, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you next week.
You have been listening to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, the podcast show 415, brought to you by Hospitality Digital Marketing and in support of the HSMAI, Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. All rights reserved. Copyright 2023.